Hello all of you lovely people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and today I want to talk to you about video game wrestling crossovers. Or technically not, as the characters that we're going to be talking about today might look and bear an uncanny resemblance to our favourite in-ring superstars, but are actually in fact technically and legally just distinct enough not to get the lawyers a call in. And I mean, video games of course draw a lot from pop culture, and wrestling is a very big part of that. So it's actually kind of no surprise to see our favourite stars, or lookalikes at least, showing up from time to time. So let's take a look at these wannabe wonders. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game characters loosely based on wrestlers. Number 10, Bass Armstrong, who appears in Dead or Alive and is meant to be Hollywood Hogan. Team Ninja first introduced Big Bass Armstrong in the first Dead or Alive back in 1998. That, not so coincidentally, was smack bang in the middle of Hulk Hogan's run as the Hollywood leader of the NWO in Wrestling League WCW. And I mean, when you look at them side by side, the inspiration is pretty obvious. I mean, Bass and NWO Hulk, well, they're pretty identical, and both have a weird obsession about anyone touching their daughters, except them. Strange. There are other loose influences on Armstrong too, though. Later incarnations carried a heavy macho man Randy Savage vibe, and his dirty blonde look is very reminiscent of Michael P.S. Hayes. So he's kind of an amalgamation of all of these guys, but Hulk, well, he's definitely front and center. Number 9, King from the Tekken series, who's meant to be Tiger Mask. There's no doubt that Tekken's King character was supposed to be a nod towards legendary Japanese wrestler Satoru Sayama, who's better known to hardcore wrestling fans as the first guy to go under the iconic Tiger Mask gimmick. King was Namco's own personal tribute to one of the industry's finest workers. That being said, the video game character's mask was much cooler though. Much like Tiger Mask, King spawned multiple offshoots. The original King disappeared following Tekken 2 and was replaced by the creatively titled, well, King 2 from the third game onwards. And the same was true in pro wrestling. Tiger Mask's successors were also numbered in accordance to their chronological time under the mask. Number 8, ANDORE from Final Fight, who was meant to be ANDRÉ the Giant. Gamers popping endless coins into Final Fight arcade machines back in 1989 might have been stunned to see none other than ANDRÉ the Giant jump out of the WWF and into Capcom's new side-scrolling beat-em-up. And I mean, when you looked at this, of course this red-suited baddie was definitely ANDRÉ, right? Well, no, because in this game it was ANDORE. Artist Akira Yasuda and producer Yoshiki Okamoto stopped just short of adding the Giant to the end of Adore's name, but the influence is so obvious. It also was pretty loose though, because ANDRÉ was never known for rocking gold chains or red and black spots. But then again, maybe the chain was actually an homage to the time that he ripped one off Hulk Hogan pre-WrestleMania 3. Number 7, Abigail from the Final Fight series, who's meant to be Road Warrior Hawk. Yasuda and Okamoto were surely at it again when they added Road Warrior Hawk into the exact same game. There's a chance that Abigail was more heavily inspired by the Mad Max movies, I mean just like Hawk and Animal over in the wrestling world were, but he is so very close to old school Hawk. I mean, the face paint is identical. Much like with ANDRÉ, the artist got a little bit creative with Abigail's outfits. Maybe they knew they couldn't just blatantly copy what the wrestlers were wearing, or maybe they just fancied being imaginative. And when you notice it, Abigail is actually just a reskin of ANDORE with a different head. But what a head, am I right? Number 6, ABADEDE from Streets of Rage, who's meant to be the ultimate warrior. Somewhere in a far-off video game realm, the super strong ANDORE is trading punches with ABADEDE from the Streets of Rage franchise. They're probably fighting over who's got the better side-scroller, Capcom or Sega. And I mean, though Final Fight had its fan base, it's definitely Streets of Rage that stands tall as the most relevant. I mean, ABADEDE was even seen in Streets of Rage 4 earlier this year. But then again, maybe it's not actually the Ultimate Warrior at show here, because I mean, well, ABADEDE knows actually a few more moves than he did and definitely doesn't get gassed as quick. Ooh, sick burn. Number 5, Mr. Torgue FLEXINGTON from the Borderlands series, who's meant to be Hulk Hogan. It's actually not that surprising that Hulk Hogan has inspired so many characters over the years. His bandana look with the mustache and shades is pretty iconic, and it seems that Gearbox Software and 2K Games were paying close attention. And I mean, of course, 2K will know Hulk well from years of developing the WWE video games. Does that mean then that Mr. Torgue FLEXINGTON is in a way a sneaky tribute? Old Flex has a familiar appearance, gloats about his muscle-bound frame, and seems to be a sly homage to middle-aged Hogan. He's Hulk if Hulkamania existed on some dystopian alien planet full of weirdos rather than the WWF of the 1980s, which actually, when you think about it, actually describes WCW in 2000. Number 4, Craig Marduk from the Tekken series, who's meant to be Goldberg and Nathan Jones. So this entry here is actually a little bit strange because it turns out that Marduk in Swahili is actually Goldberg. Okay, that is an absolute lie. I was just trying to make it more interesting for you guys because yes, it looks like Goldberg. What else do you want me to say? The truth is that Tekken's Craig Marduk, introduced for the series' fourth entry in 2001, comes across as the former WCW fave and recent WWE Universal Champion, if that is that he got a fondness for sparkly green ring attire. So where does Nathan Jones come into this? Well, Marduk is an Australian ex-convict who shares a lot of physical traits with the WWE. Well, let's just be kind here and just say that he was not a superstar. So there's possibly a connection there as well. Perhaps somebody at Namco thought that Goldberg and Jones needed to be amalgamated into this one badass fighter. Number 3, El Blaze from the Virtua Fighter series, who's meant to be Rey Mysterio. El Blaze was first introduced in Virtua Fighter 5 and likes nothing more than fighting his rival Wolf Hawkfield, shouting hot dog during fights. No, seriously, that is what he does, and possibly hitting fools with a 619 or West Coast pop. In other words, random taunts aside, he's a video game version of high-flying hero Rey Mysterio. But as of the time of recording, at least Blazy has both eyes. I mean, what the hell's going on with that? The lead artist for this game was clearly influenced by the antics of Mysterio when looking to design new characters for this fighting franchise. Blaze's default mask and attire are eerily similar to one that Rey actually wore during his world title push in 2006, which is the very same year that Virtua Fighter 5 launched. Number 2, Raiden/Big Bear from the King of Fighters and Fatal Fury series, who's meant to be Big Van Vader. This tour of various fighting game favorites continues with Raiden, otherwise known as Big Bear from both the Fatal Fury and King of Fighters series. The mammoth character is a pro wrestling badass who is more than a passing resemblance to a sadly deceased former world champion in the form of Big Van Vader. But somehow though, it's Raiden time, baby, isn't as catchy as it's Vader time. Eventually, Vader would switch up his mask and wear a little less leather over his chops, but the one that he originally used in Japan provided SNK with inspiration for their own grappler. Honestly, just look at these dudes side to side, and it's like somebody just sketched a cartoon of Leon White and decided to give him some blue gear. And number 1, Rock from SOULCALIBUR, who's meant to be Triple H. Now, technically, SOULCALIBUR's Rock was first seen in Namco's Soul Edge precursor back in 1997. That obviously would mean that he had a better chance of influencing Triple H's Conan the Barbarian WrestleMania entrance than the other way around. But just look at what the character turned into. In later SOULCALIBUR games, Rock ditched his fancy headpiece and looked every bit like Triple H circa 2003 to 2004. And that, ladies and gents, would mean that there's a video game character called Rock who has nothing to do with Dwayne Johnson and everything to do with Paul Levesque. Namco even tweaked Rock further so that he'd sporadically switch out his trademark blade weapon for a big hammer. And I wonder where they got the idea for that. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 video game characters loosely based on wrestlers. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on the social medias at RetroJ, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice. It's my personal gaming channel where I stream every single Wednesday and Sunday. And I hope you have a great day. Speak to you soon. Peace.